Okay, in this video we're going to make sure that our player, when they're travelling around this map, cannot go through the X's and some other tiles. So I'm going to pick this one tile. Okay, I'm going to make them so the player can't move. Let's just look what the game's looking like at the minute. So I've got a silly arrow sprite, but that yellow block is where the one is, which I can currently go through, and the red block's obviously wall boundaries. I don't want to be able to go through those as well. Okay, so I don't want that behavior to happen. So in order to do this, I need to know what tiles we're talking about here. So these are the graphics tiles. So I've got X, which is tile 1, and 1, which is tile 3. Remember, everything when we're talking about lists starts at 0. So that dot is a 0, 1, 3. Okay, so I'm going to go to my map definition, and I'm going to create some constants to represent those tiles. So I'm going to call it GT for graphic tile, and I'm going to have it as block equals 1. So I'm just at the top of my game map. You might have called yours something completely different. So I've just set up two constant to refer to those two numbers. I could have used 1 and 3, but it would make my code later unmeaningful. Now what we're going to do is we wouldn't necessarily detect collision with all these different graphic tiles, because it gets really complicated if you do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a collision map, and the only ones I'm going to set up to start with are, I'm going to call them C empty, and that's going to be collision tile 0, and I'm going to have C block. I'll call it blocked. Okay, and I'm going to number that 1. Alright, so I'm going to create a series of collision tiles where I'm going to say for all these graphics they're either going to be empty or they're going to be blocked. You can't go through them. Alright, the majority of them are going to be empty. They're just graphics. Okay, but I'm going to put specific ones, one for the block and one for the number 1 character. Okay, the 1 and 3 tile, and make those collisions. Right, so after I've defined my tilemap, I'm going to create a list of collision tiles. So I'll explain what I'm doing in a sec. Right, so what we're doing is saying create a load of collision tiles, and the number I want to create, and there are square brackets that I've got there, is the same number that I've got graphics tiles for. And if I do it like this, it won't generate any errors, and it will generate the list the same size as the number of graphics I've got. What we're then going to do, they will by default be filled with 0, which we're going to use as empty to refer to and say, right, okay, anything that's empty we're going to walk through. Okay, but we need to set some specific ones. We're going to say, right, okay, the graphic tile that's a block, we want that to be a blocked tile, a blocked collision tile, but we also want the GT1 to also be a blocked collision tile. Use the picker so you get the case correct. Okay, so we're saying that all the other ones you can walk through, these two specific, if you come across these two graphics tiles, you can't walk through them. So once you've done that, you're going to say create collision map, and then the tilemap engine is going to do all that working out for it. It's going to create another map that you don't see, okay, and it's going to show you the collision tiles. So in order to visualize this, so we can do, I'm still in the map, I'm going to say overlay output equals tilemap.overlay collision contents, and I'm going to say overlay show equals true. This is just for debugging because it slows everything down. And then gm.engineManager dot debug display, and I'm going to say equals debug.overlay, tilemap overlay. So what you'll see is when the map's drawn now, it'll show me which ones have got collision tiles that are 0 and 1. So you can see as it's rendered, the yellow one, so if I move my arrow, the yellow one has got a 1 in the corner, and all the red ones have got 1s in the corner. All the other tiles have got a 0, because they were set to be empty collision tiles. So you can double check where you've got collisions. So you can see all these red ones, these green ones, they're all 0. Okay, but all the red ones have got a 1, that yellow one has got a 1, but that blue one's got a 0. So that's what the collision tiles look like. So it's a duplicate map. Right, I'm going to turn that off because I'm not interested in looking at that. That was just to show you. Okay. Right, the next thing we need is we need to make a function. So I'm just scrolling down to an empty part. So I must make sure when I'm creating new methods or functions that they're not inside other methods. Okay, the easiest way to do that is find one that exists, like this process map one, or find the end of another one. So this is the end of the game map constructor. So you can see just that it's highlighted to show that that matches that. So I'm going to put a comment there and say that's game map. So I know. So I'm outside and I can create, and now I'm going to create a function. So this function is going to return a Boolean value. That's a true or false value to say whether a specific location on the map is empty. So we're going to pass it two parameters, x and a y value. Put your braces in. It's moaning that I haven't returned a value because I haven't written any code yet. Okay, so we're going to say, right, let's have a look to see what tile position we're talking about. So we're going to say point tile location equals, and we're just going to say tile location, the method, and we're going to say x, y. Okay, so we're saying what tile coordinate does that x and y position, and we'll use this in our player control code and you'll see how it works. It's quite magic. Okay, right, what we're going to do is we're going to say, right, okay then, using that tile location, so we're going to say collision item here. So we're looking at the collision map and we'll say, right, this tile location. Now there's two ways you can do this. You can specify a single item or you can do a list. Now I'm going to show you the list method. So I'm going to say new int, and then I'm going to put the tiles that I want to look for empty. But in my case this is just C empty. Okay, but I could have other ones that I just ignore. So I've shown you the full version of that. Okay, looks a little complicated, and I can show you specifics for different ones, but we're just looking for empty tiles at the minute. You could have written it like this. You could have just said tile location C empty if you want. It's up to you, I don't mind which way you do it. Okay, I can show you other ways to do that. Right, that's what we need to set up in the tile map. So we've had to set up some collision tile references. So these were graphic tile references that were going to be significant. These are collision tiles, so we can check for empty and we can check for blocked. We built the collision tiles, the list for them, and then we set some specific ones that we wanted to be blocked collision tiles. And then we got the map to create them. Okay, and then we created this empty function. Now let's go back to our player code now, because this, if we just run this isn't going to actually help us much because it hasn't changed any code because I'm not using any of it yet. So I can still go through the red and the yellows. Okay, so let's go to our player, which I haven't got open. So let's go to Solution Explorer. I think my player character is called player. Okay, so what I'm looking for is my key code. So I'm going to go to my move keys, and this is my basic key code. So if you've seen my bullet shooting video, there's the bullet controls. But I've got this, when I move right, I'm just changing the X value. But I need to now check and say, right, okay, I don't want to move right. Well, I do when they press the right key down, but only if I've got an empty passage. So I'm going to say my map dot empty, and I'm going to give it a position. Now if I'm moving right, I want to know where, if the location to the right of me plus a pixel is empty, and I can just put the Y value. So I want to know that that's empty. So I'm saying only go right if I press the key down and the location to the right of me, that's what the +1 on the right of the sprite means, is empty. So we've just written this function. Let's just go to that. This was the one that looked to see if there was an empty tile and said true if it was. Okay, let's just look at that again. So I'm only checking right at the minute. So let's just run that. So now theoretically I'm pressing right, it won't let me go right. Obviously I can still go left, and then I get stuck because I've gone inside the tile. That's because I hadn't written the code for it. Okay, so let's have a look. To do the left key, exactly the same. So I'm going to say is the left key down and my map.empty. This time I want to be left -1, so 1 pixel to the left of me. Make sure you match your brackets up. Use the grey things. You can see that that one matches up with that bracket, that one matches up with the one right at the start of the if. Okay, so now I shouldn't be able to go left and right. I'll still be able to go up and down, get stuck, but you see I can't go. Let's check that the yellow one I can't go. You notice that if you've got a tall character, if you're checking the center, if the center's above the tile, you'll go through it. I can show you a way of double checking that in a sec, but won't worry about that now. Okay, so you can see we've got this nice little bit of code set up. Do the same for the up and down. So we've got and my map.empty. Right, so if we're going up, we want our top location -1, so that's 1 above. Remember, minus goes upwards, and that's the Y value. Don't be silly, Eric. So you want X and then top. Add another bracket to close off the if. Oh, capital X. Run that, and I shouldn't be able to. Oh, I've put it in the wrong key code now. I've gone and put it. Oh, I'm going mad. Going mad. It's alright. It's late. Right, so I can't now go up. So I've got left, right sorted, and up. Just need to go down, because if I scroll down, I bet I can go into there. Oh, you see. So I can't get back up because it's not like getting me through the tile. So let's just do the down one. So we say and, that just means and that. Obviously, in order to make this work, your player sprite needs to have a reference to its map that it's in. So when I construct the player, I gave it a starting point, but I've also passed it the map, which I have then stored. If you haven't got that reference, you need to add that bit of code in. Okay, so I'm looking at the bottom of the sprite, +1, so I'm looking 1 pixel below where my character is. Right, hopefully with that little bit of code. See, I built that in the empty function, so I can't actually go through anything now. So stuck. We still got that problem, and I'll show you how to fix that in a sec. Okay, so I've got some basic collision detection there. Right, the issue with me being able to go through it when I'm at the center is because I'm using Y, which by default on the sprite is the center. If you change the alignment, it'll be slightly different. But what you can do is you can change this, and you can say, right, okay, let's check the right hand side of the sprite, but the top. So let's say top, and also say, okay, let's say mymap.empty right +1, but at the bottom of the sprite. So we're checking the two corners effectively. Okay. Now that line's gone quite long, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this. So where the ands are, I'm just going to press enter just before it, and I can see that I'm doing 3 checks. I'm saying, have I pressed right? Is the right hand side at the top of the sprite empty? Is the right hand side at the bottom of the sprite empty? And you'll see that this won't let me go through the yellow block. If it gets a bit more collision detection is complicated, there's nothing you can do about that. So now I've got to actually be, you see the left one still let me run through as long as the centre wasn't out, but I can't on the other ones now. So I can do that exact same bit of code. So I'm just going to break it onto the next line, and I'm going to set the left up in the same way. So I'm going to say left -1, but I want the bottom, and I want to change that to top. Obviously it's saying it's expected a left bracket, so I need to add an extra one in. So now I shouldn't be able to move left and right through that either. In reality, when you're doing collision detection, you make special points up. So I can't get through at all now. Obviously I've still got that problem with up and down. See, I'm overlapping there. So I can do the same with those two if I wanted to. That's up to you to sort out. Okay, so I'll just show you on this one. So I'm going to say mymap.empty. So instead of X, when I'm going up, I want the left hand side to check. And I want to say mymap.empty right hand side above the top of the sprite. So I shouldn't be able to do it on the up and down either. But it's entirely up to you how tight you want your collision detection to be. So now I can't do that. That's just slightly overlapping. We're just doing rectangular detection here. Okay, just put it on the down key as well. So instead of X, we're going to say left. Let me say right, bottom +1. Okay, so we're saying like, is the key down? Is the left hand bottom edge, is that okay? Is the right hand bottom edge? So you're just checking the two corners to make sure they're not in a collision tile. So hopefully it still works. So we've got that yellow block that we can't move in. Oh, that's interesting. Because my sprite's so high, the centre's over the tile, but the tops and bottoms aren't. So you might want to put in, and this is where it all starts getting like, you know, I've got to make it, how accurate do I want to make it? And what we can do is we can create little functions to do this, but I can just add another test in, so I can say, okay, alright then, so for my left and right, I'm going to say right if I can type it, +1, comma, center dot y. So I say, okay then, check the center. Let's see if that works. So I've actually got 4 tests involved. So there you go, it stops that happening now, so I can't possibly go through that graphic. Okay, right, just recap what we did. In my game map, I decided which of my graphics tiles, 1 and 3, I wanted to make blockable. Then I created 2 collision numbers, 0 to say empty and 1 for blocked. I created some collision tiles, the same number that I had graphic tiles. I then set the numbers that I'd picked, so the block and the number 1 from a tile map, that was the 1 and the 3. I said okay, make those blocked. So set those to blocked collision tiles. All the others are by default empty. I then said create collision map to create those collision tiles, and it creates a big map. Okay. I then created a little function that's given an x and y value, would say whether that tile was empty or not. Okay, so in the collision map, and then in my player code, assuming, and that was the prerequisite, that when I create the player in the constructor, that I give it the map as well as any other data it needs, but it's got access to its map. Okay, and that is stored so I can refer to it later on, so that when I move, I don't just let the characters move. I've put in a check for the key, but I've also used this empty function, this empty method of my map, to say, right, at that location, is it empty? And to be rigorous, I've done this. Okay. And I've done the same for the left, up, down. Okay, that's it. Very, very complicated, but give it a go.